Okay, I'm making this video for a friend of mine, uh, who, I care about. He's a good guy. Uh, I'm trying to explain because, I was telling him about what was going on with what Trump said and stuff like that. And, he was kind of asking me, well, what's your solution? What's your solution? And I have the solution, but it doesn't involve a master plan. It doesn't involve, some new legislative law or anything like that. It's just an understanding of what is. It involves an understanding of what true freedom actually is. And the first thing that we need to come to grips with, there's a couple things. The first thing is that authority doesn't exist. And we need to understand what authority actually means. Because these people in government that are ruling over us, that's what they're doing. We call them our leaders and all that, but that's just euphemisms. They are ruling over us like slave masters. And authority is the claim that you have the right, not necessarily the ability to control people, because gangs have that, mafias have that, individuals with power have the ability to control. But authority is the right to control. Okay? Nobody has the right to rule another. And that's where these political parasites claim to get the right to do what they do, is through their authority. And they claim to get their authority through documents. Now, we need to understand how ridiculous that is. If rights don't come from human beings, then how can a human being write on paper the right to take your property by force, to just create whatever opinionated rules they want and then impose those with violence against individuals and claim that the Constitution gave me the authority to do that? That's illegitimate. The Constitution didn't give any authority for anything. The Constitution is a document. That's it. There is no legitimacy in any documentation like that. So we need to understand what authority is. The second thing is we need to understand what government actually is. Okay? And what government actually is slavery. That's what it is, dude. Government is slavery. It's a small group of people that claim to have the moral right to initiate force. Their rules and everything that they make, okay, are backed by the threat of violence. And most of those rules are against people who are non-violent. You cannot use violence to achieve freedom. You have to allow people to be free. And the reason, and people think, oh, well, the government should only do this or that. Well, everyone thinks that. Everyone thinks that the government should do what they want it to do. And then they use the mechanism of government to ask other people through voting and all these political rituals to impose their version of what is right and wrong onto everyone else, instead of allowing people to be free. But people who believe in government and constitutions, they don't actually want freedom, because they fear the unknown. They think that Well, if there wasn't government, everyone would be violently dominating everybody else. Well, people are going to be initiating violence whether or not government exists or not. And that's the thing, government doesn't exist. The people exist, the buildings exist, the weapons exist, the soldiers exist, but their supposed authority to do what they do doesn't exist because nobody has the right to initiate force. And that's literally all the government does, which means that the entire structure of the government is immoral because the initiation of force is wrong. And it's a contradiction to say, like, if I wanted to, make our society healthier, and I said, well, I'm gonna do this little ritual with my rich buddies and write down on paper that people aren't allowed to eat candy or drink pop. And then I extort money and fine anyone from eating candy, and then I cage them if I catch them eating candy. And then if I try to cage them and they resist, then I claim through the law and through the authority that I have the right to use physical force and even kill them if they don't comply with that edict. That's immoral, and that's everything that the government does is violent, dude. They are a violent, immoral institution. And the fact that somebody would say, well, people are bad and they'll do malicious things, and that's part of human nature. So I got a great idea. What we're going to do is we're going to write down on a piece of paper and give these guys a right that we don't have, which is the right to initiate force. We're going to give a small subset group of people the right to violently dominate everyone else. And then when they use violence in the wrong way, point at the piece of paper and say, well, this paper said you weren't allowed to do it. And they go, whatever, we own the courts, we own everything. So there's nothing you can do about it. That is literally insane to think that people are bad, so we need to give a small subset group of those people the right to use violence against everybody else and take their property. That makes no sense. And the solution to what we have right now is to understand what anarchy actually is. And anarchy means no rulers. That's what it means. An meaning without, it's a Greek word. An meaning without, and archon meaning ruler. Means without rulers, without a ruling class. And that's what all governments are. It's a class of people that are ruling over other people. And the reason why these institutions are put into place is to protect us from people that would try to rule us or violently dominate us. So we actually create the thing that we don't want. And that's called, what this whole thing is statism. It's a religion, dude. And I know a lot of people don't want to accept this, because if they accept that the Constitution is illegitimate, and if they could, accept the fact that the government doesn't abide by that, and that the government is slavery, okay, because it claims to have the right to own somebody else's property and take it by force. When we come to that realization, we have to actually admit that we've been duped, and that we've been lied to, and that we've believed something our entire life that is a lie. And that's really hard for people to do. That's really hard for people to do. And a lot of these people who believe in the Constitution, will say, oh, I believe in unalienable rights, but when an agent of the state uses violence to physically stop somebody from exercising those rights, their solution is to beg those same people in a courtroom to please, legalize freedom. Which means that you're admitting that your own freedom isn't up to you. It's up to them and government. And to give these people a bunch of power and then expect them to not abuse it after you just said that people were malicious and violent is ridiculous, because there's no mechanism to stop evil people from going into government and using government to control everybody else. Excuse me, I'm kind of a nasty hillbilly. And everything that they're doing is based in authority. Everything that they do is based in authority. And authority doesn't exist, dude. Like, the law doesn't exist. Either the law aligns with morality, and it aligns with right and wrong, which means that it's redundant, or it goes against morality, which means that it's immoral. So, the law and human beings don't create rights, which is an action that does not cause harm to another person. Human beings don't create the legitimacy of that effect. Either the behavior causes harm and it's a wrongdoing, or the behavior does not cause harm and it's reserved as a right, which means I have the right to do it. And rights are kind of like a negative. People have the right to do a lot of things, whether or not a constitution says it or not. But, saying that I have a right to do something is kind of a negative. Saying I have a right to do something simply just means nobody else has the right to use force to stop me from doing that thing. That's what a right is. So, there's a bunch of aspects. This is a really deep thing to kind of understand, but you have to understand that by you voting and by you participating in the government and thinking that, oh, well, if we just get the right guy in office, then we can be free. That's a pipe dream, and that's never going to happen. And then, you could claim, oh, well, you're talking about some utopia and everything like that. No, that's not what I'm saying. I understand that people are going to use force. I understand that violence exists, and yes, people need to organize in order to, protect ourselves from that. And we can use the free market, and we can, make contracts with each other and deal with those things, and certain little towns can make rules and stuff like that, but we need to allow people to be free. And with a government, a ruling class, being here, we will never have freedom, because we are literally giving up our freedom to other people, and then in the hopes that they're not going to take our freedoms, when that's all that they're doing. That's it. And as far as this military worship, apparently our freedoms got taken away from us in 9/11, and apparently our freedoms magically appeared over in Afghanistan. So we had to send a bunch of soldiers over there to fight for our freedom. And then our freedom magically jumped over to Iraq. And now all of our freedoms are in Iraq. I mean, and people believe that they're fighting for our freedoms. It's like, no, they're not, dude. We have had our freedoms systematically destroyed by the very government that the military works for. And that's hard for people to admit. Soldiers aren't fighting for freedom, dude. They are fighting for bankers and politicians at our expense through coercive taxation. And another thing you need to understand is all taxation is theft. Because if you think taxation is legitimate in any way, then if 5% taxation is okay, then why isn't 100% taxation okay? And we know that 100% taxation would be slavery. If the government said we have the right to tax 100% of your income and then decide how much of it you're going to get back, you are a slave. So my question would be, at what point does it not become slavery? If you think that the government has the right to tax you, 0.1%, and that's moral, then at what number, at what percentage does it magically become immoral to initiate force to take property? And you got to understand certain things like that. And you got to understand that by you participating in the government, you are participating in slavery, dude, for everyone else. That's what you're doing, and that's wrong. That's wrong. By you voting and supporting any politician and giving any sanction to the government at all is admitting that you believe in the legitimacy of authority, which means that you believe in the legitimacy of slavery. And, I don't think that I have the power to just, convince you to change your entire paradigm and to change your entire ideology. All I can do is show you what true freedom actually entails. And that entails accepting the fact that you don't know how the entire world is going to work. Nobody can tell you that. No government can tell you that. People need to be free to organize and do what they do. And that entails some sort of danger. And like Thomas Jefferson said, he prefers dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. And that statement is true. The Declaration of Independence was an anarchist document. It was a document that said you don't own me. It was a document that said you're not the boss of me. That's an anarchist document. Anarchy does not mean chaos. But the Constitution after that, which James Madison and, a couple other people, or no, maybe it wasn't James Madison. I think he was a Federalist. It was a couple of the Founding Fathers. Thomas Paine was one of them that said they didn't like the Constitution because what it did was created a ruling class by saying Congress shall have the right to lay and collect taxes, which means that since I don't have a right to tax you, you don't have the right to tax me, we don't have the right to tax the government, but somehow all of us collectively delegated that right to Congress. A right that none of us have individually. And that's literally insane. So, the Constitution created a ruling class. And that right there, this idea of limited government obviously doesn't work because it created the largest extortion racket in human history. And that's called the United States government. So, this is just kind of a little tidbit of what I can give you. And if you're interested in more, I can absolutely show it to you. And I would love to show it to you because My goal is to get you out of your belief system. And your belief system in the government and these constitutions and everything like that is called statism. If you believe in any government at all, you are a statist. Even if you believe in limited government, you're a statist because you believe that government is actually real, and it's not. The right to rule is not real. So essentially you're believing that Santa Claus exists, and then when I tell you, listen dude, Santa Claus doesn't exist, and then you tell me, well, how is Christmas going to work if Santa Claus doesn't exist? How would we do this, and that if government wasn't there? And nobody can tell you that. Nobody can tell you how everything would work. Except you only know what you can do to make things work. And you have to understand self-ownership, the fact that you own yourself, and that nobody else has a higher claim over your life and property than you. And every government claims to have a higher claim over your life and property than you do. Which means you don't have inalienable rights. If you believe in government, your rights are, put into the pot to just be thrown away at a whim by any political parasite. And the fact that you think that by putting another political parasite into office is going to make you free is literally insane, brother. Statism is a cult belief system. If you believe in government and you believe in the state, you believe in a cult that is violent towards other people. And by you participating in it, you are giving it your support. The people that go and protest and everything like that, they have good intentions, but it seems like they're almost psychologically incapable of disobeying authority. Because by them going up to the Capitol, they're just legitimizing the fact that their rights and their freedoms aren't up to them. They're up to the legislators and the governors. If they really understood inalienable rights, they would just say, fuck you, I don't have to do what you say. I'm going to open my business. I'm going to go back to work. I don't care about you and your authority. You're just a tyrant. But when they go there, they're asking for permission, maybe indirectly, and maybe some of the people just went there to say, hey, I'm going to have my firearm, and I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to let you know that if you try to come and take it, I'm going to physically resist. And then there's other people that are wanting them to legalize freedom, which means that they're begging them for freedom. So it's a psychological thing to understand what I'm talking about. There is a solution to what we have going on. And the solution is to remove your belief in authority. Because once you take that belief out of your mind, then the entire structure of government falls apart. And you realize, wait a second, we're just people. We're just people interacting. And the solution to that is voluntarism, which is just simply non-violent, voluntary interaction. Which means that violence is bad. So we don't engage in that. But yeah, everyone has the right to use defensive force to protect themselves. Absolutely. And that doesn't mean that people aren't going to be violent. Anarchists like myself, anarchists and voluntarists understand that people out there are violent. But the reason why we don't support the government is if we shed that belief in authority and nobody thought that the government had a right to do what it's doing, then a massive amount of violence and extortion would disappear. and they wouldn't be able to carry out all these orders and do what they do. They wouldn't think that a police officer has a right to just stop them and search their pockets and do whatever they want, or surveil them, okay? Or make a law and take their firearm because it's too short, or just any of these things. None of these people have a right to do what they're doing. But the only reason why people feel an obligation to obey is because they view them as authority. So they actually believe that these people have a right to do what they're doing. You know? And the solution isn't going to those same people and then asking them to please be nicer. The solution is to disobey them completely and defend yourself accordingly and to organize. So the solution to what we have going on is anarchy and voluntarism, okay? And a real understanding of freedom and shedding the belief in authority, you know? And it takes a lot of mental strength to do that, like I said before, you know? So you have to realize that what you're participating in is wrong, dude. It's wrong. That's the main thing. And these politicians are lying to you, dude. They're playing you so hard. They're playing you like a fiddle. And a lot of men, they don't want to admit that. And I understand that. I totally understand that. Okay? But we have to shed our ego. And we have to realize that none of these our freedoms are not up to them. They're up to us. And running around trying to beg them to change their rules is never going to work. Ever. You know, Trump is not your friend, dude. And it amazes me that people actually, like, believe that when he's shown over and over and over again that he's a tyrant. Every single person that works for government is your enemy, dude. Even if they don't realize it. All the politicians, all the bureaucrats, all the CIA agents, all the police officers, all of them. Because they all believe in authority. Which means that if the government tells them to do something, most of them will do it. And we see that happening right now. Every day. Order followers just carrying out orders. Yeah, some of them are speaking out, and they're getting fired for doing it. But those people still believe in the legitimacy of authority. Which means that they still believe that a certain group of people has the right to rule over everyone else. And that's called being a statist. So, you know, this video has kind of gotten a little bit long, but there's just some things that you have to come to terms with and accept because you're believing in a fiction. You're believing in legislation and laws and all this fictional man-made shit while at the same time claiming to, like, be a Christian and be believing in God. Well, you should be operating underneath God's law, not man's law. And if you believe in God and you claim that you're operating under God's law, then you shouldn't be voting, okay? You shouldn't be participating in any government system at all. Because you should know what God's law actually is. And that's a really hard thing to do. You know, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance involved. You know, the belief in government is a religious cult belief. And the reason why it's a cult is because it's a religious belief system that initiates violence against those who do not believe its dogma. And that's exactly what the government does. When the government passes a law and someone like me says, wait, that law is immoral, that rule, that opinion, that dictate is immoral, well, one of their cult members who believes in the legitimacy of it and the legitimacy of authority and government and slavery will initiate violence against me through either extorting money from me or taking my physical property or taking my physical body and my freedom away from me and then putting me in a cage. And then if I resist those transgressions, then I will be killed. which means that that person is a cult member that believes in the religion and in the God called government. And government is their God, dude. So, like I said, these are just some things that we have to understand, and there's hundreds and hundreds of other things. But you have to realize that your solution, your perceived solution to the problems that we have in the world right now, are not going to do anything, man. They're not. And if you want to talk more about things that we can do and things that we can organize with and work together with and handle, and different philosophies and principles, I want to share that with you. But one thing I don't want to do, and one thing I can't do, is make you believe what I believe. I can't make you understand something. I can't force you to understand something, even if I know it's right. Even if you believe in slavery and I believe in freedom, I can only show you what freedom is, but I can't force you to believe in freedom. And that's all that government does, is try to force people to believe in their religion and force people to believe in their opinion of what freedom is. And that's immoral. So, that's all I got to say right now. If you're willing to talk more, then I'm totally down, man. I'm totally down. I don't dislike you, because you're a statist or anything. Like, I care about you. But it's to a point where it's a little bit hard because, what I'm trying to do is wake you up. I'm trying to wake you up to get you to realize the truth. And that's very difficult to do because it involves you admitting that you've been lied to. And really no one wants to do that. So, we have to stick together, man. We have to understand that us, as individuals, need to be on the same team. And we need to know who the enemy is, dude. And the enemy is government. It's the belief in authority and government. That is the enemy. Because governments slaughter millions of people in the past 100 years alone, not including war, they've killed over 250 million people of their own people. Governments have. People in government. All based on the belief in authority because the people who carry those orders out believe that they were right because authority told them to do it. And that's an insane religious cult mentality. So, that's all I got right now, man. But I'm down to talk a little bit more if you're down. All right, we need to understand who the enemy is, dude, and it's not it's not us against each other and you believe this and I believe that. People have the right to believe what they want as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. And right now your belief